Hello, everybody. My name is Kathy Barnard. I'm the chair of the Planning Board. I'm here with Tavis Austin, who is the Director of Planning and Development for the town of Wolfeboro. We're here to discuss the proposed zoning amendments that will appear on the 2024 town warrant as Article 2 and Article 3. These will be voted on March 12th, which is voting day. The planning board's role is to provide for the orderly growth of the town. We do that by adopting a master plan to help guide all of the boards and commissions. The last master plan was adopted in 2019. The planning board is also responsible for adopting changes to the zoning ordinance if changes are needed. Many times the changes that we're proposing are just to make the ordinance clearer or more understandable for the public. This year the planning board is working on the shorefront residential district. We've been working with the Wolfeboro Waters Committee on these proposed changes. Wolfeboro Waters is a Board of Selectmen committee and was formed due to the increasing concern of the quality of our water in the lakes and ponds. So this amendment helps address some of these issues for development along the shorefront with clearer and more specific requirements. So I'll turn this over to Tavis now so he can go through the ordinance.
Thank you. As Kathy mentioned, there's one planning board article on this year's warrant, that is Article 2. There is a voter's guide that I'll speak to again at the end. But to start with, Article 2 is looking to clarify setback requirements and to amend permitted uses and those regulations governing tree and vegetation removal and stormwater provisions within the shorefront residential zoning district. So this amendment will not affect any zone other than the shorefront residential zoning district. Specifically, Article 2 proposes an amendment to the zoning regulations, again, specifically the shorefront regulations, which is Article 9, and the changes are occurring in section, the shorefront regulations encompass Article 9, Section 175.62 through 175.67. These regulations were originally developed to regulate development along the town's shorefront areas, or generally those areas within 300 feet of our public waterways. The regulations were last updated in 2021. That was March 9th by Article 2. So the current amendment is proposing changes to 175.64, 65, and 67, looking to clarify setback requirements and amend permitted uses, and again, those regulations governing tree and vegetation removal. So specifically, the changes to 175.64 address side yard setbacks. As you can see, there was some overlap with the current language, so it left a question: do the setbacks of 75 feet apply, or do the setbacks of 99 apply? Those have been modified to read 75 to less than 100 feet, 100 to less than 150 feet, and then the last is 150 feet or more. The next change is in 175.65 permitted uses. This is the addition of one single attached dwelling unit per lot with one accessory dwelling unit. This was omitted in the 2017 update to the zoning regulations, where an accessory dwelling unit was added to all zones. So it's being added here just for consistency with state law. Then later on in 175.65, you see a change to the definition of boathouse. What the planning board did here was make sure that the definition in the shorefront regulations matched the definition of boathouse that is also in the zoning regulations in section 175. I'd say the majority of this current amendment under Article 2 addresses changes in section 175.67, which is the shorefront lot improvement standards. They're outlined on the screen in front of you, but specifically it's making properties that are going under development responsible for infiltrating the stormwater runoff that occurs as a result of their project. For example, currently the regulation says for a project that has between 15 and 20% impervious, they're required to install a rain garden. It doesn't say what size rain garden. So the proposed change here is to make them account for all of the water, to make sure that the water is going into the ground as opposed to becoming surface water that goes into lakes and ponds, what have you. And you can see on the screen, and again, this is printed out in a voter's guide for you, exactly as you see it on the screen with the track changes so that you can see exactly what it says now and what it's proposed to say. It goes on later in that same section. The planning board spent a lot of time deliberating and discussing trees versus saplings, how it was to be referenced in the ordinance. You can then see later that they did some work to separate out shrub coverage area versus ground cover. That is another change that's pointed out here. And another good bit of discussion dealt with tree removal within the shorefront residential area. So they've added some clarification on what the terms mean, and they added specifically a condition verification by the town tree warden. So you might say, why the tree warden? Currently the ordinance doesn't say who makes the determination. It's not a question for the planning board. It's not a question for the code officer. Should it really be up to the applicant and their tree contractor? So now that specificity has been added. Then based on those changes to ground cover and tree and sapling, they modified the tables to make sure those were consistent. And then toward the end of the amendment, in the same section, they clarified the language with regard to fertilizer use in the shorefront area. And then under lot redevelopment specifically, they called out that for lot redevelopment, the site plan has to be prepared by a professional engineer or surveyor. So it's not something Joe homeowner can do anymore for lot redevelopment. That was a lot to say in a short period of time, so I would encourage you all to go online and pick up a copy of the voter's guide. We have copies in the Planning and Development office. The link is showing up on the screen in front of you. All of it can be accessed through the town website, wolfeboronh.us. And also, as you see on the screen, and as you hear me speaking, WCTV will be having the reading available online if you'd like to go see Kathy and I go through it again.
Okay, but and all you have to do really when you go on the website is go to the planning board and then go to the left, and it's the fourth item down that
Correct.
Goes through all of these changes, just in case you're unclear about something or want to check on it before you go to vote. Another change that's being proposed is a petition warrant article. This was submitted by Wolfeboro residents, and this change is to amend the multifamily dwelling section of the ordinance. A public hearing was also held for these changes, as it was for the shorefront residential. I think we probably didn't say that, but anything that the planning does that goes on the town warrant, we have a public hearing on our own. And so the shorefront went for a public hearing, and then the warrant article also. There was no one present at the public hearing to explain the changes they were proposing. The planning board had some questions, basically due to more clarification. So since there was no one there to for us to question, the planning board decided not to recommend this warrant article because there was no one there to answer our questions. However, we would like to continue that discussion with the petitioners at a future date. That's pretty much it, I think.
Correct. So on the screen in front of you, you have the Article 3 as it is going to be on the warrant. The only modification that we made for presentation purposes today was to identify that it was an article submitted by petition, and then it was not recommended by the planning board.
Right, and I think we may have forgotten to mention that the planning board did recommend the shorefront residential district amendments.
Correct. Article 2 had unanimous support by the planning board.
Yes, right. So that's it. I hope everybody will better understand this ordinance, and we'll go out and vote on March 12th. And thank you.
Thank you.